Hey everyone, and welcome to the National Parks Adventure Crossing America. We're going to get started in just a moment. I'm just going to give you a few details. We definitely want you to keep your cameras on if you want to. Make sure you're using your good Zoom manners, but keep your audio off for right now. There'll be time during this event where you can unmute and ask questions. We have a special teacher here today. Ms. Schwanekamp is from Indiana, and she is going to be helping to monitor the chat window. She's also going to be admitting people. And if she hears your microphone on, she may have to do a mute all. So just let's keep those microphones off. In the chat window today, can you just drop in what state you're from so we can see where you are? And I will take a look at that also. So where are you guys from today? Just put your state in there. Kentucky, Florida, several Floridas in here. North Carolina, welcome. That's where we're coming from today. Indiana, more Floridas. Tennessee is in the house. Welcome to Miss Zimmerman's classroom. Oh, and New Mexico. So New Mexico, you're an outlier for us. So you're across the country. We're glad you're here. I do believe, though, this is my favorite classroom from New Mexico that joins us a lot. So thanks so much for being here. It also looks like we have a lot of students on their own computers. And we know that we also have students that are going to be joining us remote. We love that. Let's see if there's anybody, other state we want to add. Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us today. Now, National Parks Adventure Crossing America is a collaboration between Expeditions in Education and the National Park Foundation. They're actually funding us to travel around the country and bring live events to you from different national parks. So thank you so much. Their goal is to have every kid outdoors. And if we can't get to the parks right now, this is the next best thing. For those of you that have joined us in the past, I just want to remind you that we are still working on our scrapbooks. So this is one of my first scrapbook pages from Homestead National Park in Nebraska. And then I have another page here for our holiday in the parks. So those of you that are new to this today, we just want you to have some paper and pencil with you so that you can take some notes. You can sketch some drawings and just give us some ideas about what you've learned today. And then we want you to turn it into a scrapbook page. When you have your scrapbook page completed, your teacher will reach out to us and you will actually get a National Parks Adventure Crossing America stamp that you can put onto your notebook or to your scrapbook. So thanks for participating in this today. We're going to have a lot of things. Remember that Marvin and Huck are also here with us. They are our mascots and they will appear on your stamps. So I think we're ready to go. So let's do it. All right. So again, this is episode 3 coming to you from Biscayne National Park in South Florida. These two rangers that you see here are my new friends, Ranger Carrie and Ranger Liz. And we actually have Ranger Carrie with us today. Make sure that you remember that this is sponsored by the National Park Foundation, and we're very grateful to that. So we're calling this Crossing America because we're visiting parks from Hawaii to the East Coast. And we're doing a couple things. We're learning about the geography of where the parks are located. We're going to learn a little bit about the science today behind the park. And then we're going to investigate some stories. And then we're going to give you that STEM challenge. Now, hopefully, teachers, you've already had an opportunity to watch our virtual experience at Biscayne. But if you hadn't, don't worry about it. You can do it after this event. The first thing we're going to talk about is your scrapbook. Now, the scrapbook page doesn't have to happen today. In fact, it took me several weeks to get my scrapbook page together. But we do want you taking some notes. Our first note today is, where in the world is Biscayne? And we've already mentioned that it's in South Florida. So we have several national parks down there. We have Biscayne National Park, we have Everglades National Park, and we have Big Cypress National Preserve. And we were there at all of these places back in December. So you see on the map that I have blued out Florida. And then over to the left-hand side of the screen, I actually have the counties of Florida. So you're going to be able to see that we're down in the Keys, if you will, past the Miami-Dade, and we'll get a little bit more information about that later, but make sure that on your notes somewhere that you're putting the idea that where we are today for this event. Now, our first thing that we're going to do today is something I'm calling silent scenes. Our ranger is going to be talking about something pretty fantastic, and she gets to sort of live in this environment all the time, but we may not live in this environment, especially if we're landlocked. So we're going to be watching a short 2-minute silent video. And during this video, I want you to see or tell us what you see, what you know, and what you wonder. Now, the best way to do this when you're watching a scene is you actually keep your eyes on the screen and your hand on your paper so that you can take some notes and you don't have to look down at your hands a lot. Because if you do, you may just miss something amazing. So let's go to silent scenes. So there should be no music to this. It's just the picture. So what are you seeing? I'm seeing a lot of color here, very small fish. So maybe I'm just writing down colors and fish. I also see some plants in there. I see some greens. Maybe I'm going to include that in my drawing. I also see some spongy looking plants. So after you've sort of written down what do you see, what do you know? As you're watching this now, what is already in your information knowledge in your head? Do you know the names of any of these things that you're seeing? If so, go ahead and write that down. If you have seen the movie Finding Nemo, you may have seen a clownfish come through. So if you already know something that you know to be truth, write that down. And then our last piece is we're going to be looking at, instead of what do you see and what do you know, we're going to be asking you another question. And this is where you're going to sort of develop your list of questions. And our last question is going to be, what do you wonder? So as you're looking through this, maybe you're wondering, what type of fish is that? Or why are the colors so brilliant? And this is at the bottom of the ocean. You may ask what that thing is coming towards you right now. It has a really funny face and has a lot of spines. Maybe you're asking about that. So you're finishing up right now on what do you see, what do you know, and what do you wonder? So what I'm hoping you have is possibly a list of things, maybe in categories. So what do you see? Can anybody just drop into the chat window something that they saw? Something that you may have seen. Oh, and I already see people doing that. Thank you so much for that. I wasn't even watching that chat window. Excellent. Oh, someone saw the invasive lionfish. Yes. Now, I'm going to assume, maybe I shouldn't, but I'm going to assume that those of you from Florida really had some great ideas on what you have probably seen yourself. But I've decided to bring an expert to the group. So today we are going to meet Ranger Carrie. Now, I met Ranger Carrie back in December, and she's actually going to talk to us about what she actually knows about the coral reef. So let's go ahead and go to Ranger Carrie. Ranger Carrie, first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. And you can go ahead and share your screen.
Thanks, Stacia. It's great to be here.
We can see your screen. That looks great. So As the expert of Biscayne National Park and also being a national park ranger in multiple parks across the country, tell us a little bit about our science lesson today, which is going to be on coral reefs.
Yes, I wanted to bring you all virtually to part of Biscayne that not a lot of visitors, well, percentage-wise, I'd say the majority of our visitors would love to go here, but not everybody's able to go here because it does require taking a boat out, and you have to have the right weather and the right gear to get out to the coral reefs. And it was awesome to see all those words coming into the chat. Many of you recognize some of the different species that are part of the coral reef. And the presence of this coral reef is one of the major reasons that Biscayne became a national park. It started as a national monument in 1968, so it's been protected for a long time because of some of these special features. All right, so I wanted to show you just a little bit. We're doing geography today, so I wanted to show you just a little bit about Biscayne, kind of where we're at. We're zoomed way in on the northernmost part of the Florida Keys. So just south of the city of Miami is this beautiful bay called Biscayne Bay, and this northern part of the Florida Keys. But where the coral reef is actually out here in the middle of the blue. Actually, first of all, looking at the Biscayne National Park map, can you see how very little land there is?
Carrie, can you change your screen again like we did before we started so that it's seeing the whole screen?
Oh my goodness, I forgot.
I think it was under your display settings.
Oh,
try that.
There we go.
Is
that
yes.
better? Okay.
Yes, very good. Now ask them that question again. I think they'll be able to see it a little bit better.
There we go. There's Biscayne. Awesome. All right. So Biscayne is over 95% water, so just a tiny bit of land. The major resource that our park protects is Biscayne Bay, and then this portion of the Florida Reef Tract. Florida Reef Tract actually extends all the way down, like Daisha was mentioning, trends all the way down to Dry Tortugas National Park, all the way through the Florida Keys. So Biscayne protects just the northernmost part of it. Well, many of you recognized what a coral reef looks like, but I wanted to ask you, what is a coral? What is it actually? Is it an animal? Is it a rock? Is it a plant? What if I told you that the answer is yes to all of those things? And you might be saying, Ranger Carrie, that's crazy. How could it be all those things? But let me explain a little more in depth. All right, so what I'd like to show you right now, this is a close-up look at a coral. And coral, this is one individual here called a coral polyp. All right, so just one little coral. And you may be familiar, coral is actually cousins with a creature called a jellyfish and another creature called an anemone. So those are our cousins. So start thinking about what you know about jellyfish. They're kind of squishy, right? They have a soft body. Coral is the same. It has a soft body and it's got a pretty simple body. All right. It's got tentacles here. All right. So around, it's able to move its tentacles. And then it's got its mouth here in the center. All right. So it's got tentacles and a mouth. And then the next part is its stomach. All right. So pretty simple body. All right. And let's take a look. I wanted you to see, this is what coral looks like when it's living together with others of its kind. Coral is what's called a colonial species. So all these coral polyps, they like each other and they build their homes right next to each other. And if you can see on this right-hand part over here, this is what its skeleton looks like. So coral, it has that soft jelly body, but it makes kind of like a little stone cup for itself, and that is its skeleton. It's able to pull its tentacles inside that stone cup to protect itself. And then actually, coral is a nighttime feeder. It's a nocturnal feeder. So at night, it'll open up and it will put those tentacles out there. And it has kind of like an anemone, it has some magic stinging cells that it can sting little things that get close to it. And then it brings whatever it catches into its mouth. All right. Okay, so that's kind of explaining how coral is an animal. All right, and we also said coral is a rock. All right, so that hard skeleton that we talked about. And we said that coral grows all next to its neighbors in a colony, so it makes a big group. All right, so that explains animal and rock, but how about plant? Let's take a look at this next piece. All right, coral has an interesting relationship. This is a close-up look at a coral polyp. And do you notice in this close-up picture, you can see some kind of greenish rusty color in that clear jelly body. That is an algae, all right? And I'm going to teach you an awesome word today. It won't be on your spelling list, but it's super fun to say. All right, that word is zooxanthellae. Ready? I'm going to say it. You can say it in your classrooms with me. Ready? Zooxanthellae. All right, so zooxanthellae, coral is its host. All right, so coral provides a place for the zooxanthellae to live, but zooxanthellae provides something to the coral. All right, remember I said the primary way, or what the coral does to catch food is it catches things and brings it into its mouth. That accounts for somewhere around 10 to 20% of its food. All right, it gets the other 80 to 90% of its food from the zooxanthellae. Zooxanthellae has chlorophyll that captures the sunlight. It's a microscopic plant that is able to make its own food. And in fact, it's so good at its job at making food that it's able to share some of that food energy with the coral. So a very interesting relationship going on in the coral reef. That zooxanthellae is also what gives corals, you might have noticed in some of the video that Miss Dacia showed us, all the different colors. So the zooxanthellae is what's responsible for creating those beautiful colors. All right, something else you might have noticed in that video is there's all different shapes and sizes of coral. Recorded in Biscayne National Park, there's over 50 different kinds of coral, which I think is amazing. And some of them, they give them different names. Some are called plate-like, some are leaf-like, some are like columns or fingers. Some have branches that look almost like antlers. And this one is one of my favorites, the brain coral. Can you see those grooves in there? All right, so coral colonies, they have that hard skeleton. It can make a lot of different shapes and lots of different forms. Remember, it's all those individual coral polyps that make up the actual coral. All right. Okay, so now that you've learned a little bit about coral, I put up a picture here. Oh, you know what I forgot to tell you? So most of the corals are hard, but some of them are actually soft, and they get moved around in the water. All right, so this picture actually right in the front part of it has some of this soft coral. Okay, but I wanted you to look closely and maybe see if you could count some of the different kinds of coral that are present in this picture. You'll have to look all around this reef structure. So there's some soft coral and there's all different shapes. All right.
Carrie, thank you so much for sharing that. Would you hold up what you were holding again? We could not see that when you were sharing your screen. So kids, at the top of your screen, you'll have a little tic-tac-toe board. If you'll click on the word speaker, you should be able to see her hold up this.
So these are some of the soft corals compared to some of the hard corals. This is the coral skeleton that I was talking about. So this is a colony of a bunch, more than I can count right now, of the skeletons of the polyps. And here's a different form. This is a soft coral, another family. So that last picture that I showed you had some of the soft coral right in the foreground.
Walk out your front door and head to the water, but you can also just pull things from the back of your bookshelf. Thanks for sharing that. Hang on, because we're going to have some questions for you. But as we move forward in our scrapbooking today, we're also going to talk about some of the stories from Biscayne National Park, because we know that all of the places have a story to tell. If you've already watched the video, you've already met Mark C. Honeywell, and he was a very rich industrialist that lived in Miami, but he and his wife actually bought this island that's now called Boca Chica Key, and they turned it into their holiday resort. So everything that you find on that island, well, most of the things you find on there, the lighthouse, the pavilion, a room where they created their own electricity, and a garage was created by Mark Honeywell. He also had lots of lavish parties out there where he would bring really cool things, including an elephant that somehow got to that island. Now, remember, this is an island, so the only way on and off was with a boat. So Mark Honeywell is one of the people that you might want to do a little bit of research on. Another person that you might want to research is, let's see, there we go, is Lyndon B. Johnson. So Lyndon B. Johnson is the president that actually signed the bill that made the Biscayne Keys turn into a national park site. There was also a congressman from Florida that lobbied this, Dante Fascell, and the actual visitor center where you will go if you visit Biscayne is named after him. So we've talked about Mark C. Honeywell. We've talked about Lyndon B. Johnson being the president. Maybe in your scrapbook, you also put some information about what number president Lyndon B. Johnson was. And then our last person that I want to tell you about is Lancelot. Now, Lancelot lived on this island with his family. He spent most of his time just doing things alone. He loved doing things that he loved in creating and being an entrepreneur. He used solar panels for his electricity and for washing his clothes and dishes so that he didn't have to rely on generators. He also was extremely smart. He was an environmentalist, if you will, and he shared everything that he knew about the environmental world and under the water at Biscayne, especially sponges. He loved sponges, and you can see this picture is him holding a sponge that he collected from the water. He and his sister-in-law, Kathleen, decided later on in life that they would sell the part of their island that they owed or owned to the National Park Service. So they did that in 1970. Now, it's really important to remember, kids, that without people selling their land, the national park wouldn't be able to acquire much of the lands that we call national parks. So Lancelot was extremely important to the story of Biscayne. Now, there's a lot of other people that are important to the story also, but where is your connection? Do you have any connections to Florida? Obviously, all the kids that are on the call that are from Florida can raise their hands because they actually live there. That's their connection. But we talked about President Lyndon B. Johnson. So do you have any connections to a president or a governor or a board member of your school district or anything in politics? Because that's where your story can intersect. And then the last question for you to maybe take a little note on, Do you have a scientist in your family? Do you have a doctor or a nurse or an ecologist? Because if you do, your lives are intersecting with the story of Lancelot, who did a lot of work with environmental education. So there's your connection to the park. Remember, our stories are just as important, and we want to make sure we tell our stories. So now we're coming down to what we came here for today, and that is the STEM challenge. If you've already watched the video, you know that we're going to talk about goal number 12 for the UN Sustainability Goals: responsible consumption and production. How do we make sure that what we take into a park, we take out of a park? Now, we've talked a little bit in the video about marine debris, which is this trash that is maybe unintentionally or intentionally put into the water. But it's not just what people are taking to the islands, it's what people are letting out of their boats or their shores in other countries. So what can you do? So your task is to design a social media campaign that encourages visitors to become super vigilant in taking care of Biscayne National Park by cleaning it up when they visit. So you can go to the park and you can go out to one of the islands, you can ride one of the boats out, but basically you're just there and you don't have to pay a bunch of money to be there. So you can swim a little bit, you can lay out in the sun, you can do a lot of things, but what can you do to help the park while you're there? Well, we're going to encourage you to create posters or videos or maybe a t-shirt design that will encourage people when they're at the park to clean up the park. I think this is going to be one of those campaigns that could make a huge difference. And I know that Ranger Carrie would be very excited about this because every week she spends time out on those islands picking up trash. So the park says, leave no trace. That means when you go to the national park or any place, whatever you take in, you need to take out because you're being respectful of the land. And kids, you're going to be here a lot longer than we are. So you want to make sure that what you're doing is taking care of the land for you. So we're going to come to me for just a moment, and I'm just going to show you there are things that are washing up. What can you do? What kind of posters can you create? Social media. Here's another question though. Someone just private messaged me and asked, could they build something that would help get the trash out of the water? And the answer is yes, we would love that. I'm going to ask that you, if you would like to raise your hand, if you would like to share an idea that you have that would help us take care of Biscayne National Park. So I want you to raise your hand on the Zoom call. You have at the bottom of the screen, you have a little hand raised. So I think our first one is going to be Victoria Barrios. So Victoria, can you unmute? That's what the name's coming up on the screen. Can you unmute and share your idea?
So we could make like a filter that we put on a river. And since rivers are connected to the ocean, then we can just keep a bit of the trash from going into the ocean.
I like that. And one thing I like especially about that is that you're thinking about even other places. So it doesn't have to be just Biscayne. You're thinking about maybe where you're living. You are working on ideas before it ever gets to the ocean. So excellent job. Let's see, we've got a couple more and I'm gonna see if I can find these. All right, it says Biscayne National Park. Actually, so I'm gonna ask you to unmute. If I just ask you to unmute, you can share yours.
Come here, Alston.
Yeah, Austin, come on up and share your idea.
Look in the camera, tell them what you said.
So basically, like maybe like a filter that kind of like it goes inside the ocean and kind of filters through the water and picks up the trash. And also, you can also, some places actually do not have anywhere to put their trash, so that's why they put inside the. So maybe like a daily trash service or like a boat kind of picks up, it comes there for people to throw their trash inside the boat, and then they take it to somewhere where it can be recycled and reused.
Austin, that's a great idea. And you're coming up with two ideas basically, which is really neat. All right, Helen Mario,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Helen Mario, if you can unmute your, and we'll see if you can share something with us.
We have one student that wants to share.
Excellent.
Back up a little, Stephanie. There we go.
So basically what we could do is get a boat and we could stick this mechanical thing that picks up the boat in the ocean. And we could also use, instead of boats for land, we could use cars. Like when you are gonna pick snow with those cars, and basically those things, but to pick it up and throw it in a trash can.
That's why I love having you guys solve problems, because you think of things that we may not. So I'm going to try to get it to as many people as I can. Miss Schwanekamp's classroom, can you unmute and share?
So my idea was that you could maybe make a filter with a sensor so you don't have to be watched, so it doesn't have to be constantly watched, that it senses whenever the filter is overflowing.
I love that. And I think that that idea of a sensor is really smart, because Ranger Carrie has lots of energy, but she doesn't have the time to watch 24 hours a day. So that's really going to help her out. Thank you for sharing that. Danny Kinzel, I believe that's who I see right there. Can you unmute?
Maybe what my idea is, maybe we could like I've watched like some documentaries where these people like train animals and stuff. Maybe they could train some of the fish to go and pick up some of the trash.
I love that idea. And Danny, that sounds like that could be also a motion picture idea also. The clownfish that saved the world by taking care of trash. Thanks for sharing that. I see a bunch of people smiling in their pictures right now. Maddox, you're next, and then Miss Michelle Sandoval, you'll be after Maddox, so get ready.
Okay, so what I'm thinking is like we can put these nets on like on the banks of the thing, and the trash can like flow into the nets, and then people can like pick up the trash out the nets, so you won't have to go in like the middle of the lake to get all the trash.
Okay, so your idea would save some manpower too, so it wouldn't constantly have to have people there. The nets would be there, and you could go in once a day or twice a week and get that. I love that idea. All right, Miss Chavez's class. Are you unmuted, Miss Chavez? Ms. Chavez, it doesn't look like we can hear you on your microphone. Let me go to the next class and you work on that for just a minute. Lori Zazyski, and I apologize if I just did not do that name very nicely, but Miss Lori Zazyski or Zazicki, can you unmute and share? Okay, it looked like she went away. So Miss Sandoval, do you have it fixed now? No, it's not working. Maybe you can drop your idea into the chat window and we'll work on it on this end. Miss Alvarez's class.
Hello.
Yes.
My idea is to have like a little like filter that senses where trash is and just picks up a lot of it and then takes it back to shore, and then they put a lot of them and just repeat.
Great idea. And that will build capacity. It will keep working. So that trash. I also just want to do a shout out to Omar Shabiano. I'm not sure if this is a teacher or a student, but the comments that they're putting in the chat window are been very kind, always encouraging each other. So thank you so much for that. Miss Trux's class, can you unmute?
Here. This is Hudson.
My idea is to put more trash cans close to the river so that people don't decide to throw it in.
I love that. That's a preventative thing. You're asking them to put the trash cans there so they won't even throw in the water. I love that idea. Thank you so much. Miss Crespo? We'll just do a few more, but I see Miss Crespo, if you want to unmute.
My idea was like if you could get something like a big net that you could put, it could take out garbage, and you could like build a station that changes the garbage into like something else that you could use, like it changes the garbage into paper.
I love that. So we know that we want to recycle, reduce, reuse, and repurpose. So basically you're saying let's collect it and then let's reuse it for something else, because one of our young participants today said, where are we going to put all this trash once we get it? So I like that idea a lot. I do want to read Miss Sandoval's idea from one of her students. They said, build a boat that when you drive it, that automatically picks up trash like a vacuum. And then Leland said, put a bucket that picks up trash and shreds it, then recycles the shredded trash. And this is exactly what Ms. Crespo's class just said. So we like that idea. Nita Nieves, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing right.
Here we go. That's okay. Nilda Nieves. It's okay.
Nieves.
I have one.
Come real close to the microphone and speak really loud.
You can use nets that catch fish to catch trash.
Yeah, and I want to ask you a question about that because someone else mentioned nets. You have to be really careful, right, with your design, because your idea is not to entangle up a fish. You're building that net specifically for trash. So I love the idea that you're thinking about those fish too. And Jada, I see. Thank you so much, Ms. Nieves. And Jada, can you go ahead and unmute and share your idea? Are you there, Jada? Can you unmute? Oh, Jada, it looks like your microphone's not working. Can you type your idea into the chat window for me, please? Well, kids, I love all of these ideas. And unfortunately, we don't have enough time to get everyone's out here, but we're going to give you an opportunity to share it. Before we do though, teachers, I want to show you a couple books that I absolutely love that I think would be a good connection to your story of Biscayne. And I have written a lot of lesson plans and STEM ideas for these. So I will send this out to you so that you have copies of the lesson plan. So first one is Shark Lady, it's about Eugenia Clark. Tracking tortoises would be a great one. We didn't talk about it on here, but Carrie's actually, they get to track turtles at Biscayne National Park. How cool is that they get to play around with turtles and the hatching of eggs? And we talk about that on the video. Another one would be really good is tracking trash. Teachers, in this one, there is a website where you can go and you can have your kids be citizen scientists, and they can collect trash from certain areas and then enter that data into this website, and then their data becomes part of the project. And then the last one is David Wisner's Flotsam. So this is actually a book with no words, and you actually come up with the words for this. So we've had an amazing time. Ranger Carey, can you just come on for one more second and just, I don't know, I think we need to thank these kids for coming up with ideas, but do you have a parting word for them?
Yes, certainly. It's been amazing to see all the different faces and to hear these fresh ideas from students. Congratulations on coming up with some amazing potential solutions. to help with our issue with marine debris. Some of the debris comes to us from Florida and our local boaters, and some of it comes from the Gulf Stream from all different countries. So it's a big problem that's going to take a lot of different people working together.
And we know, Ranger Carey, that we feel that kids are the best ways to solve those types of problems. Now, there was a lot of ideas that popped into the chat window that I'm going to curate all of those and share those with you. But let's go back to the screen for just a moment, because I have two more things to say. I'm going to give you another challenge. So if you want an extension of this, maybe you do a little bit of research on the mangroves that are found in Biscayne Bay. There's a lot of mangroves there, and there's such a beautiful story about how sturdy they are and how they protect other animals and plants. They actually protect what we call the nurseries in Biscayne National Park. So teachers, I will send you a copy of this so that you can extend your learning for your 4th and 5th graders. And then I want you to share your scrapbook with us. So here's where you're going to share it. Miss Schwannekamp, if you can drop the link into the chat window for me. But we want you to share a photo of your scrapbooks. We want you to share a prototype of your ideas that you're going to come up with to solve goal number 12. And we also just want you to share any ideas that you have for Ranger Carey, and then the other ranger that you actually see on the video, which is Ranger Liz. Teachers, if you can just make sure that when you post these things on the Padlet, that you have permission for your students to, this can be shared on social media. If you don't want their faces shown, if you don't have permission for that, please just put something over their face or have them just show their hands holding up their ideas. But we would love to share these, especially with the National Park Foundation and the sponsors that work with the National Park Foundation. We know that kids are going to be the world changers. They're going to be the ones that come up with the ideas that make a difference in our world. So thank you, every single one of you, all 93 participants that came online today with us. Thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, National Park Foundation, for your funding. If you're not registered teachers for the next event, you can register here and we will get you for our next event, which happens to be on Wednesday at the Everglades. So I'm going to ask that everyone come up to the camera, get your hands ready for a big wave, because we're going to do a couple pictures here. Just so I can see all of my Brady Bunch folks, and you're going to do a big wave. And if I did not get to you today, would you please, teachers, give me your questions, because Ranger Carey would love to answer more questions. And if you're interested in having her speak to your class in your follow-up email, I will give her information to you. So thank you so much on behalf of Expeditions in Education, Marvin and Huck, and the National Park Foundation. This is Dr. Drizzle, and we're out of here. Have a great day, everyone. See you soon.
Adios.
Adios. Thank you. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for joining. Teachers, kudos to your kids, especially the ones you put on remote. 99.9% of those kids were right on target, and even the 0.001 was good. So thank you so much. So Danny, at the bottom of your screen, you should have a little red button that says leave. That's how you're going to get out of here. Thank you so much. Carrie, if you can stay on for just a moment, and Miss, yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Miss Aurora. Thank you, Miss Michelle Sandoval Chavez. We are very happy that you're here again. We love when you come visit us. Let's work on that microphone for next time to make sure we can get you talking with us, okay? Thank you, Gabriella. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye, Jonah Burns family. It's good to see you. Thank you, Miss Nieves. Thank you so much for joining us.